So in previous video, we created an instance of the Vue application, we created a div, and then we injected this application inside of this div, and then we just printed some data. So let's play a bit more. So let's try to add a second message inside our application. In order to do that, we just have to define a message to hello from the message to. Okay, if I want to print this now, we already learned we have to use two curly braces and then specify the name of this variable inside. It's going to be a message to. So I will just copy this, paste it here. And if I go back to the browser, if I refresh this, then you will see that this hello from the message to is going to be printed right here. If I want to add this on the second line, so under the message one, I can add a simple break line here. If I go back to the website, I can then see that the second message is printed under the first message. Okay. Of course, we don't have to work only with strings. We can work with some numbers. So if I add here variable 1 is 20, variable 2 is 10. And if I want to sum these numbers, then of course I will just say sum of the numbers is, and again I want to print these numbers, so I will open two curly braces, say variable 1 plus variable 2. You can clearly see that we can use a sum operation inside these two curly braces. Okay, if I refresh this, okay, I want this line to be under this message too, so I will add here to a simple break line. If I go back to the website, if I refresh this, then you can see that the sum of these numbers is 30. So at this moment, everything worked really well, and sometimes we have errors inside our application. And let's try to simulate a simple error. So let's try to reference here a variable that is not defined inside the data. So let's try to print some message 3. I will add here message 3. And you can clearly see that the message 3 is not defined here inside our data. So what the Vue application will do in this case, the Vue application will go just through all these lines, and here the message is defined in our data. The message 2 is also defined. The variable 1, variable 2, they are both defined here. And then on the last line, the application will say, okay, I don't understand what I understand that you want to print the message 3 here, but unfortunately you didn't define it. So if I go back to the browser and if I open this, or if I refresh this page, then you will see that the third message is not printed here, but here in the console I have a simple error. So the Vue is saying property or method message 3, it's not defined in the instance, but it's referenced during a render. That means I referenced the variable inside my template here, but I didn't define it inside the data. So you guessed it, quick fix, just define a message 3 here as message 3 text. So if I go back now to the browser, if I refresh it, then you will see the message 3 text is displayed and this error here disappeared. Okay, so everything worked really fine right now. But if you remember from the previous video, I said that you can run multiple Vue instances inside the single website. That means in our case, we have right now one Vue application running inside this div, but I can add multiple of them. So let's try to add a second Vue application inside this website here. Okay. So first thing I have to define is a container where my application will run, and I will name this container application 2. You can name this div as it's up to you. You can name it application 2 or container 2 or whatever you want. And I will leave it blank right now. So I will here create a second application. So application 2 is new Vue. And here I want to mention something. Some of the students, they are not comfortable with this construction here because sometimes they are getting confused with so many curly braces. They don't know what this is. So what you can do is you can extract that into variables. So you can define here a config variable as a simple JavaScript object, and then you can add these attributes inside. So in our case, I will add lel, which is coming from element once again. And I want this application to run inside this div. So I will just copy this, put it here, and I specified now that this application should run exactly in this div here. And I want to add some data inside. So I will just add a data as, again, JavaScript object, and I will add here message as well. Message from the second app. Okay, so right now we created a config object for our second application, and the last thing we have to do is we have to inject this object inside the Vue application. So I'll just copy this and paste it here. So this, when we did this, the process is done. The application will then connect itself with this div here, and it will be nice that we print something. There is a message we have here, so I will just print this message here. Okay, so message. If I save this, if I go back to the web browser, then you will see that message from the second app is printed. Okay, don't be confused. And if you are wondering why this message is not printed here, it's because this application here has nothing to do with this div here, because this application is actually connected with this div here, right here. So only the second app is connected with this div here. It's referenced through this ID identifier, you know. And that's why this message from the second app is printed inside this div. Okay, so right now we learned that you can create multiple instances of the Vue application inside existing website. So if you remember from the previous video, we said that if you want to run application from inside your existing website, then that use case is called a progressive one. And that is exactly the use case that we have here right now. So at the start, I had a simple HTML website. Then I added my first Vue application. Then I added some text inside of it. I printed some messages inside of it. Then I added a second application. And then I also connected it with my second application right here. And then I also printed this message. So we connected the previous video with this video. We created a simple Hello World application, and now it's a good place to take a short break before we continue. Thank you for watching.